Hello everyone and welcome back to another Dawn of War 3 video. This time it is the most epic comeback that I've ever seen in Dawn of War 3. And I was privileged to be a part of it. It was me and a buddy playing some 2v2s late last night, as you do. And I was playing as Space Marines with my newly minted chapter colours. A nice gold kind of shade and a black and white kind of shoulder pad thing going on. And he was playing as Eldar. Now, he is the most Eldar-like player that I've ever seen play Eldar as a race. Now, apparently he's just going to main Eldar for the rest of his time playing the game. And I can't blame him, because the way he plays Eldar is pretty much as you'd expect Eldar to play. He's the sneakiest son of a gun I've ever seen play an RTS. And you will see what I mean by that in a second. So, I guess I'll just do some standard commentary for the first 10 minutes or so. So here we are, we're just doing the standard thing as our opponents. And by the way, I am using the in-game replay system to do this video, alongside some video editing, of course, to chop it up into betterly sliced and diced footage. But yeah, we're doing the standard thing. Tacticals are coming out. I went for the fast assault marine and a drop pod build for Space Marines, which is probably my favourite thing at the moment to do with Space Marines. Just spamming like 3 tactical squads is just too weak at the moment. Even if you have Assault Hermes with their passive of giving all of your dudes, all of your tactical squads frag grenades, it's still not really good enough to make tacticals better than a scout squad and an Assault Marine squad and a drop pod, at least early on. Later on, of course, tacticals have the range to upgrade into, you know, Plasma or Flamer, depending on if you're facing Space Marines or Orcs and Eldar, respectively. And naturally, once they're upgraded with extra health and damage, they're better than vanilla, but even so. Here you can see the sheer power of having a bunch of Assault Marines in a drop pod. You can disrupt a line of retreat for an opposing squad. You can secure more likely squad wipes in the early game, which, as I've railed on in past videos, is such a big deal. And yeah, really allows you to take a bit of map presence and dominance. So here's the Eldar side of the map for my buddy. And funnily enough, the opposing Space Marine player has a very similar colour scheme to me. Except it looks like he's got dark blue in his shoulder pads instead of black. So, you know, Dire Avengers are poking in and out with the force field bubble. Naturally, that is an absolute pain to get past for Eldar unless they have Banshees ready and willing, but it wasn't quite at that point in the game, unfortunately for my bro. So yeah, he had to kind of play a bit passive for the moment. And meanwhile, I'm sort of poking in, seeing what the opponent has, and finding out very quickly that he has a lot of Howling Banshees. And this is a trend that will continue on in the rest of the game, don't worry. So here we are, we're both pushed back from our natural resource points. I'm pushed back from the elite point generator on our side, simply due to a very poor initial engagement with those darned Howling Banshees. Regardless, as you can see, many Banshees. This is just skipped forward. I'm going to be skipping forward a couple of times in the video. But many Howling Banshees are very hard for kind of Space Marines to deal with in general. Really, from my experience playing this game, I think the only way you could stop like mass Howling Banshees would be upgrading like quickly into an arsenal and then flamers, and taking it from there with some kind of flamer template micro, along with, if you had equipped, of course, the Deathwatch kill team. That would also be very helpful, just because a free flamer and the Vortex grenade as a source of CC. But yeah, Howling Banshees being slightly cheaper than Assault Marines, yeah, they're a bit of a problem. Also, I guess you could just spam Assault Marines, but I really want to avoid just spamming units as a strategy. I feel like that's such a lazy way to take games, despite how actually competitive it might be. Spams that have worked in the past in this game, despite its short history, include Ranger spam for Eldar in the betas, which seems to have gone away a bit in the full game, and Assault Marine spam for Space Marine. Because Assault Marines, turns out, have the most health of any early game tier 1 unit, and also have the sheer utility of having a jump pack, which can have multiple charges, of course, allowing them to A, dive in and then do a bit of damage and then dive out, you know, perfectly safely. And yeah, once they have the power sword upgrade, they can be an absolute menace. So here, my Eldar buddy is doing a lot of work. He's taken out the resource node on his side and has pushed forward, and I think that was taking out a barracks or a Doctrine Chapel, one of the two. And yeah, was getting a lot of work done with his Howling Banshee Striking Scorpion Janezar force. So unfortunately, both the Space Marine player from my side and the Eldar player, actually it was the Eldar player from my side and the Space Marine player kind of grouped up. He's got a lot of Devastators and she's got a lot of Eldar. So a lot of Eldar Banshees. So this was kind of the point in the game where we realized that maybe things weren't going quite so well. I've been on the absolute back foot the entire match at this point, other than the first few minutes. As you saw, I had an initial successful engagement and then ran into Banshees that I couldn't get away from. So yeah, not good. As you can see, I'm backing up, going to do some reinforcing, as you do, and the opposing Space Marine player is what looks like rebuilding his forward base. Again, as you do, pretty typical stuff, but these webway gates will be a recurring theme in this match, as you will see later. Essentially, the way my buddy plays is, I'm going to call him Salmon from now on, because I'm running out of ways to call him Buddy. But the way he plays is he makes lots of webway gates and really sneakily warps around the map with his Bone Singers, or Bone Weavers, whatever they're called. And with all of these webway gates, as soon as he hits tier 3, he can start teleporting between them, which allows him to essentially do a lot of surprise attacks all across the map. And I did play a 1v1 against him before this match, just as a warm-up, and I lost to Eldar Trickery, which was pretty hilarious. It was a pretty fun game. So here we go, just an absolute ridiculous number of Devastators with heavy bolters, which are, to be fair, being stopped quite nicely by that force field. But as soon as the Banshees show up, with their ability to just go on through the force field and absolutely destroy any ranged unit within, yeah, he did kind of have to back up. So once again, we lose this resource node, and if I remember correctly, we will not be taking it back for a long, long time. If ever, actually. So the swarms of Banshees and Devastator Marines are just kind of rolling around the map, and at this point we have just been taking a lot of losses in our fights. I'm sort of trying to play defensively, but my side, every time I've pushed in, I've taken severe losses, and despite having the Assault Terminators with my force at the moment, I really felt that it was better for me to play defensively and protect what remained of our system's defenses. At this point, I do believe we still had both of our turrets up, so I figured I'd try and defend those whilst building up a bigger force in the background. But here you can see the opposing Space Marine and Eldar alliance that we faced, and they have to have been playing as their team because their coordination was legit. They were just roaming around with both of their armies together, and that meant that me and Salmon really did have to coordinate properly if we were going to, you know, resist this and take a win. So here we go, they basically just dive in on our left-hand turret with all of their forces. Really nice coordination on their part. I activate the stun on the turret, but unfortunately that is not similar to the power core's invulnerability, and therefore, whilst it might stun units nearby, it doesn't stun far away units, and therefore is completely susceptible to being dackered down from a distance, which is, you know, exactly what happened. So here we go. After the turret goes down, they do close in on the rest of our forces, and Salmon also is just spamming a lot of Banshees because he seems to have found a lot of success with it. And at this point, I've upgraded my Tactical Marines quite a lot, but that Farseer Maka Spear combo does a fair amount of AoE damage to my forces. And naturally, as soon as Banshees get close, they really do make up the difference of being a meta unit versus a ranged unit, and can do some serious damage. Fortunately, with a couple of Flamer templates, I am able to just force them off. And at this point, my strategy was, well, if he's going for a lot of light armored Banshees, who are just a menace in close quarters, I am going to go full defensive and basically the economy defense, which is tacticals equipped with flamers and upgrades, as you can afford them. So here, we managed to push back the Eldar player's Banshee force, and so I figure maybe I can do some work on the map by pushing forward a bit. But unfortunately, the Space Marine player on the opposing team is still in fully working order with a lot of his army and a lot of Devastators doing a lot of work. Even with my Assault Terminators tanking a lot of this damage from the Devastators, we're still not taking a great fight at all. So here we go. My very own standard is planted, as well as my Gabriel Angelos going in to do some wreckage. And here you can see, with the Falcon's ability to reinforce and the speed they provide units that go inside, the Eldar's Banshees are once again back on the map and ready to rumble once again. So, this is where it really starts getting hairy. My Gabriel is just kind of taking their chapter banner, as you do, kind of nullifying its bonus. Unfortunately, apparently, you have to stick a unit within the chapter banner's radius for a long time, or at the very least permanently, to permanently disable its ability, which I guess makes sense since you could just stick a tactical squad in and have them pew pew from within that circle, keeping it decapped. But regardless, we continue to take losses, and with them having the definite economic advantage, with them controlling at least half the map at this point, more than that really, we're definitely not in the best position. But as mentioned, my partner Salmon, his webway gates are really proving to be very useful, as he's able to sneak in squads of Banshees and just target key objectives on the map. And he previously did this with an energy generator, the shield generator, which is pretty cool, and now he's taken out a turret, and is proving to be a very nice distraction for buying us time in this match. So naturally, his force is a bit of a suicidal one, but even so, that was totally worth it, because now the opposing team's power core, you know, the main focus of this game mode, is completely open for us to snipe if we can. And as you can see there, the Bone Singer for Salmon is quickly building another webway gate, so he can really nicely sneak his forces in. And here's a close-up of all the Banshees that were just crowding in. And you can see the strategy here for the opposing Eldar player. Banshees plus Falcons equals a lot of very quick reinforcements in the middle of the fight, and the Banshees will tie up all the ranged units very nicely. So yeah, that was definitely a running issue with this game, but as you can see, we actually somehow made progress despite being severely outnumbered. And as you can see, the Whirlwinds are just pumping artillery shots into our forces and power cores and buildings. And yeah, I'm basically kind of lining up for the last desperate defense at this point. But little did I know, Salmon had snuck in his striking Scorpions, what looks like 3 squads of Banshees and some of his elites, into the opponent's power core. And he was just wailing on it, and he was just kind of desperately telling me, buy time for me to do this. And fortunately, I did have one of my elites out, the Assault Terminators, and they have the ability to do basically a ground slam ability that stuns units in a pretty solid AoE around them, which you will see me use fairly shortly. And I also called in my Orbital Bombardment, which delayed, again, a few squads from doing damage to our power core, which was pretty awesome. And as you can see, we actually are winning the race, but then the opposing team activates their power core's invulnerability, so his sniping force, my partner's sniping force, can't do anything for the moment. But, quid pro quo, we have our very own invulnerability activation, so I wait until as late as I possibly could, really, to be safe, and then activates it, meaning that the opponent's invulnerability would run out before ours did, and so we can do the last desperate points of damage, just ripping victory from the jaws of our opponents at the last possible second. And have you ever seen a match that desperately close? That close to failing? Ah, that was teamwork at its finest. One force stalling and stunning and disrupting and crowd controlling, and the other force, naturally the Eldar race, just sneaking in the backlines and just doing the final deadly stroke. And that is the beauty of well-coordinated team games in an RTS, especially Dawn of War 3, and I do hope you enjoyed this. More coming up fairly soon.